MVP.
When I stop talking, that's when you jump in usually.
He said, ring that bell! He said, ring that bell!
Then it's You Better You Bet, hosted by Nick Costos and Femi Abebefe.
Great teams and great players get a whistle. It's happened forever. It will continue to happen.
Capped off every night with the electric Brad Evans and Ryan Horvat on BetMGM tonight.
Oh, that's a sexy phrase.
Quote Dr. Dre, creep with me and walk with me on this one.
Welcome to a new era of Wagertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Please gamble responsibly.
Yeah, it should be in your drive. Because once you get it once, it should be in your Google Drive. Morning, Pat. This guy. Inflation. Gas prices, my mortgage. Yeah, whenever Pat brings me on, I threw bets in on our hot takes or hot takes. If you want it, Pat, feel free. I'll come in. I can talk baseball. I watch the Pats play and whenever you bring me in, I'll be in. Pat, do you have access to the Google Doc? Apparently it's been coming in PDF form. It's going to be a generic open. Michigan and Tennessee and Michigan State all on their side of the damn bracket. It changes things a little bit. Dre, you just logging in to do a mic check, or? I thought you wanted to come on at 11:20. Hell, 10:20 our time, but we can switch it up if you want to come back in like at the next segment. You want to do 9:20 or 8:20 our time? Does that work for you, Pat? All right. No, I always love seeing your. Nobody. Okay. We got 10 seconds. We're on.
This is Sunday Bets on the BetMGM Network, sponsored by BetMGM.
Good morning, North America. Happy St. Paddy's Day weekend. This is Sunday Bets. I'm your host, Pat Boyle. The great Sean Marash, he is off today. He is somewhere in St. Martin or St. Thomas, St. Martin, however you want to pronounce it, if you want to get out your Dutch accent. But the big guy is soaking up some sun. He's taking a I guess, deserved. I mean, he doesn't really work that much, but I guess you could say it's a well-deserved vacation for him. The guy takes off on Selection Sunday, though. Go figure. While the rest of the country and the rest of the world is fixated on March Madness, on the NCAA tournament, on an incredible first week of NFL free agency. So don't worry. I've got you covered. You can watch us on twitch.tv. You can watch us on YouTube, where you can see my Life of the Potty shirt that I've got going on. Of course, Pat Boyle, great Irishman like myself. I'm all decked out for the festivities, and I'm ready to give you some winning bets. I'm ready to talk about the NCAA tournament. I'm ready to get you set for Selection Sunday, which is a mere 9 hours away. And we're going to be talking about all the conference championships yesterday. We've got 5 conference championship games again today. I got a soccer bet coming up for you in just 15 minutes. I got some tennis bets. We do a lot of everything here. We like to bet. We like to win some money. So we're going to do a lot of that here, and we're going to try to do a lot of that over the next 3 hours. Just to lay out the show, 2 guests today. We've got our very own Brad Evans from BetMGM tonight. He's going to join us in just under 20 minutes from now. Going to get Brad's thoughts. We're going to hear him maybe say, I want to put the over-under. Maybe we can do a sideshow bet on how many times Brad Evans mentions Bart Torvik or Ken Palm. Maybe we could set the over-under at 3.5, and if he goes over, we give out some kind of prize or something. Just kidding.
That's way
Brad's
over.
awesome. And he brings an incredible amount of energy. So he's going to join us in just under 20 minutes. And then we'll have Mike DeCourcy joining us in about an hour and 20 minutes from now. Final hour of the show is always phenomenal. We do hot takes and hot cakes at the beginning of every hour. We'll have GTFO or Oh Yeah, and then Boyle's Beef Bet and Degeneration Bet. So a lot to go on the table here. But like I just mentioned here, we start every show and we start the top of every hour with hot takes and hot cakes. Let's get it going.
Grab your morning coffee. It's time for Hot Cakes and Hot Takes from Sean Marash and Pat Boyle on the BetMGM Network.
Yeah, I'll give you a bet. I'll give you my prediction for the national championship winner in just a moment here. And this is something that I'm going to, before Selection Sunday begins today, or maybe I wait until the brackets come out. That's kind of the thing. That's kind of the beauty about these next 9 hours. You can bet on BetMGM and, any sportsbook, obviously, a team to win the national championship right now. You could also maybe hope that you get a better, bracket, a better luck of the draw, a better region for the team that you're feeling. Maybe they get a soft 2 seed. Maybe they, avoid one of the dark horses that you think could win the tournament. So you could wait till the brackets come out. You could get this bet in before the brackets come out and hope that, again, maybe you get a better draw. If you're looking to pick Duke and then all of a sudden maybe Duke gets matched up with a St. John's and with a Tennessee, and then you're like, oh, God, that's not what I wanted. It could go the other way as well. But this is a bet that I'm going to make once the brackets come out. I'll give that to you in just a moment. But I think the overarching takeaway that I had from really just the last week of the season and now yesterday is that I have never spoiled so quickly on a big favorite, one of the favorites to win the tournament, than I have with the Auburn Tigers. I will be looking to fade the Auburn Tigers in the tournament. Maybe not in the first, round or two. Mind you, I believe it was Bruce Pearl's squad got knocked out in the first round by Yale last year. But I'm not saying I'm going to bet, the 15 seed or a 16 seed to beat them in the first round or, 7, 8, 9, 10 to beat them in the second round. But come Sweet 16, come Elite 8, and if they do make the Final Four, come Final Four, I'm fading the Auburn Tigers. I think this team hit its peak weeks ago, months ago, really. When they beat Alabama in that first meeting, I think Auburn hit their peak. And I don't think they're able to recover. I think they've lost something offensively. Now you can make the argument, oh, well, Pat, they wrapped up the SEC outright regular season championship, all the way back with a couple of games left to go in the season. So that game that they lost to Texas A&M, a ranked team, by the way, on the road, 2 weeks ago, shouldn't mean much to you. And look, Alabama's a team that's been in the top 5, top 10 all year. They lost in overtime to them. You really shouldn't hold that against them. And, hey, Tennessee's a great team. They're a top 10 team in the country. And the SEC has been a historic conference this year. They've lost 2 games to 2 of the top teams in the country within 5 points in the last week. Like, they still have Janai Broom. They've still got a bunch of shooters. They've still got an incredible physical defensive team with guys like Chad Baker, Mazzara, and Todd Pettiford, who are going to get after it defensively. And that's a team that can score and defend. Yeah, all things true. But you know what? They've lost 3 out of their last 4 games. And momentum is a real thing in March Madness. Just like we've seen teams win their conference championship and make runs, whether they're a top 5 team in the country or whether they're a team that was, who's about to fire their coach and a season that had gone awry like North Carolina State last year. They went on a magic carpet ride to win the ACC tournament. They get all the way to the Final Four last year. I don't like the momentum. I don't like the lack of momentum that Auburn has right now. And again, yes, they lost to 3 ranked teams. They're going to see ranked teams starting in the Sweet 16 of the NCAA tournament, perhaps even in the second round. They could get if they're a 1 seed or a 2 seed, you could be looking at a 7 or an 8 that's been basically hovering around the top 25 all year. I just don't like the fact that in the last 2 games in this SEC tournament, they barely were able to score against Ole Miss, not a good defensive team, and they struggled to score against Tennessee. Okay, maybe they just weren't accustomed to the hoops in Nashville where the SEC tournament was, Bridgestone Arena. And, again, maybe just another arena will treat them kindly. I don't buy it. I just see this team has lost 3 out of the last 4 games. Yes, Janai Broome is great. He also hasn't been, he's probably going to be the runner-up for National Player of the Year. I still think Cooper Flagg is going to win it. I don't think the 2 games that he just missed in the ACC tournament is going to cost him that award because, again, Janai Broome still put up 23 points against Tennessee, put up 23 points and 15 rebounds against Ole Miss. It wasn't that efficient. Against Ole Miss. And again, we go back a couple of games. Only scored 8 points against A&M. Only scored 9 points against Kentucky. And I'm starting to think that maybe Auburn isn't as just deep and stacked and untouchable as we thought they were a couple of weeks ago when they were running through a historic conference. Right? If the NCAA tournament, if it was February madness, yeah, Auburn probably would have won the national championship. But you know what? It's called March Madness. The tournament's in March. This team hit their peak too early. So I'm looking to fade the Auburn Tigers. I will not be betting them. Just as a side note here, how many brackets do you put forth in March Madness, right? Are you somebody that does 8 brackets? Are you somebody that does 3 or 4 brackets? Maybe like a normal person? Maybe 4 is even too much. I think 2 to 3 brackets are the sweet spot, right? Because let's be honest, you probably have one for your office. You probably have an office pool. You probably have one with your friends. And then you probably have one that you're just like, you know what? Let me just submit to CBS Sports' challenge or whatever challenge that you like out there. And let me pick some wacky things. And if I'm like the top bracket in the country, like I'm going to have that pride. I think 2 to 3 brackets is probably the sweet spot for most people. But again, I try to treat every bracket like it means something. And, maybe if I like one team in one bracket, but for the most part, I'm not saying, all right, well, I've got Auburn winning it all in this one, and I got Auburn getting upset in the first round of that one. How is that possible? How could you have 2 totally different polarizing opinions of one team? So for me, I'm not putting Auburn in the Final Four in any of my brackets. I'm not. I don't trust them. I don't think they're that great. I think they've peaked too early. I think they've run out of momentum. And yeah, Bruce Pearl can get up there and, say things that are not politically correct on TV about his guards, saying that, they're not meow meows, all he wants. Like, yeah, like the fact of the matter is you got to make shots. They couldn't make a shot to save their life in this SEC tournament. And I think Auburn is a team that if they struggle to score early, yeah, they're a solid defensive team. But outside of Janai Broome, I know, and I'm not disrespecting their team. Again, I've rattled off a couple of the guys that have been dogs for them this year, that have hit some good shots. But when it comes down to it, when they're going up against a 3 seed or a 2 seed or a 4 seed, I don't trust that they've got the shooters to be able to get them back in a game, to be able to knock down threes. And again, I realize all the success that they had in the regular season, but sometimes it's about who's hot. And right now, Auburn's not hot. So there we go on that. They lose to Tennessee 70-65 in the SEC semifinal yesterday. I'll give you my reaction on some of the 23 games last night, 18 conference championships, 18 tickets booked. Give you some thoughts on who I think could be a dark horse in the NCAA tournament, some Cinderellas that could make a run as we get through the show. But I did promise you that I would give you a team. It's easy to crap on a team that you think is not going to win the NCAA championship, right? That they're not going to win the Natty. Well, all right, Pat, who do you think is going to win the Natty? I'll tell you who. And it's not because I have a New York City bias, because I wasn't really a big St. John's fan, and I was crushing Rick Pitino last year when he threw his entire team under the bus. But I think the St. John's Red Storm, winners of the Big East championship in the regular season, winners of the Big East tournament title last night, crushing Creighton down the stretch. I think the Johnnies are dangerous. I think they are great value. I'm taking St. John's to win the national championship plus 2,200 on BetMGM. You can do that right now. Those are the Johnny's odds. If you live in New York, tough cookies. I live in New Jersey, so I can bet a New York school. Plus 2,200. The Johnnies, I think, can win the national championship. They've got a three-headed monster of guys that can score, guys that can defend. They are physical. They are long. And they've basically destroyed the Big East. And again, I know it's not the SEC this year. Big 12 was even pretty damn good as well. I know the Big East had a down year, but what St. John's was able to do was nothing shy of remarkable. R.J. Lewis Jr. is a guy that you should become familiar with if you haven't watched a lot of college hoops and you're kind of just, dropping in, parachuting in on here and saying, all right, you know what? It's March Madness. I'm ready to go here. It's a Sunday. I'm ready to watch a couple of these conference championship games and get some bets before once the brackets come out. R.J. Lewis is a guy that you need to familiarize yourself with because he can shoot the mid-range. He can shoot the three. He can drive and attack the basket. He had 29 points last night in the Big East championship game. He has been their go-to scorer all year. Then they've got Kadari Richmond, transferred from Seton Hall last year, another school right by, who had 12 rebounds. He can defend 1 through 5. He can go and get you transition buckets. He's one of the best defenders in the country. And then their big guy, Zuby Ejiofor, is a guy that has taken off into another stratosphere in just the last couple of games. He had a career-high 33 points in the semifinals against Marquette. He had 20 points last night. He is a force down low. He also can pop out and shoot the three a little bit. St. John's is necessarily not a team that relies on the three, which is why I like them. Because they went 7 of 14 from beyond the arc yesterday, but they don't necessarily live and die by the three. They defend relentlessly for 40 minutes. And, again, last year I had a tweet that went viral. Not to pat myself on the back. I'm just, letting you guys know. I had a tweet that went viral last year because Rick Pitino basically had a lot of these guys on the team last year. There's some new guys, sure, and they've gotten a guy that's the founder of Body Armor and Vitamin Water, Mike Rapoli, to basically give him like $1 billion for NIL money. So I'm sure you'll hear that when you watch the tournament. But a lot of the same guys on the team last year. And Rick Pitino went viral last year when St. John's didn't make the tournament, even though they went on a good run. And he goes, my whole team is slow laterally. These guys are not athletic enough. And then basically double down and blame the entire team. I was like, where is the accountability from a guy that has done nothing but turn programs around everywhere he's gone, that has won a conference championship with 4 different teams, now 5 different teams. And this year, these guys have bought in. They are well coached. I got to give Pitino a ton of credit. They are going to be the toughest out in the tournament this year because they are relentless. They play incredible defense, which is what you need for March. They've got senior leadership. They've got veteran guards. And they've got 3 different guys that can beat you in 3 levels of the floor: mid-range, inside the paint, and from deep. So the Johnnies to win the Natty at plus 2,200. Really quickly here, we've got producer Brandon Combs. I want to get him involved in the open because he has got a bet on the national championship. Brandon, good morning, my brother. How are you? Who do you think's winning it all?
I'm doing good, Pat. Good stuff today. I've got Florida. I think I've seen enough from Florida in this SEC tournament yesterday, setting a team tournament record with 104 points against a really good Alabama squad. And I like the odds at 6-1. I do like your St. John's pick, though. You have me thinking I might put another bet in because that's kind of what we do, right?
Yeah. Look, I mean, you don't. It's not marriage. You don't have to be married to one team if you like 2-3 teams to win it all, and that's the beauty of betting, baby.
Well, I'm on my 3rd marriage, so I definitely understand that.
And there you go, Brandon Combs. I will we'll be getting to him throughout the show. He's been doing a great job so far as the producer of this show this year's Sunday Bets. So with that, we will take our first break. When we come back, we've got a guy that, man, it's going to be tough to match his energy. That's normally not the thing that you hear me saying, Pat Boyle. But Brad Evans, the co-host of BetMGM tonight, is going to join us next to give us his bets. I'm Pat Boyle. This is Sunday Bets. We will be right back talking college hoops and NFL all Sunday morning today. Don't go anywhere.
Sunday Bets will be right back on the BetMGM network, sponsored by BetMGM.
Spreads, props, parlays. If it's bettable, we're talking about it. You're tuned in to Sunday's Bets on the BetMGM Network.
All right, welcome on back to Sunday's Bet. St. Patty's Day Eve. It's Selection Sunday. Madness is at an all-time high here. We've got 5 more conference championship games today that we will get into. But for all things madness, I know he's been talking about it for a while now, getting you set. Not many better people to follow in this industry, in this realm, when it comes to college basketball than our very own Brad Evans, host of BetMGM tonight, Monday through Friday, 7 to 11 p.m. Eastern, right here on the BetMGM Network. Noisy Huevos on Twitter. Brad, what's going on, brother? Thanks for joining us.
Amigo, coffee is flowing. It is going to be a long and late night for your boy, but there's more money to be made on the hardwood, which I appreciate. But yeah, I'm a little bit nervous right now because the teacher has got a red pen in hand and she's about to grade my bracket big board projection.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I mean, we had the WAC, we had the SWAC, we had the Big West Championship last night. You basically had 13 hours of college hoops. I guess for those of us that, maybe have a family, maybe you have a wife, a significant other, you have kids, you maybe want to give them an ounce of attention. Luckily, the college basketball gods, they're not going to give us basketball past 6:00 Eastern. And then once the brackets come out, you have dinner with the family, you say a couple of nice things, and then we fill out the brackets, right? What is Selection Sunday? What does this process look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I got up bright and early, 6 a.m. this morning. I was updating the bracket big board, getting some tweaks, and some of the games I actually fell asleep on the late night tip. Grand Canyon, I woke up to a winner, baby, as they scored the cover and got the automatic berth there in the WAC conference tournament title game over Utah Valley. So that's always a good feeling when you roll out of bed with a little extra cash there in your account. But yeah, I've been cranking out team capsules. I've been working with the Athletic over the last couple of weeks, and my friends and associates in the field of 68, Rob Doster, Sam Lance as well. We're going to have a full tournament scouting guide that is going to be unveiled on the Athletic, only the Athletic, tonight after the pairings come out. So you might want to get your grubby little mitts on that. Because we have poured a lot of blood, sweat, and beers into that project here over the last, like I said, 2 to 3 weeks. But yeah, man, I'll be tweaking the bracket big board, watching some of the finals today, hopefully adding a few buckaroos to the bank account in the process, and just waiting and see what the madness unveils. And the first thing I do, because I'm going to be doing a show right here on the BetMGM Network tonight, immediately following the Selection Sunday show on CBS with Nick Costos. We're going to be breaking down all of our initial leans. My wife's going to print out a bracket. She's going to hand it to me, and I'm immediately fill it out. It's my gut bracket. And I'm going to have that posted on thegamingjuice.com as well. That one always outperforms the brain bracket, which I post about 48 hours later. So that's the madness. That is the wildness of the day for me. And cherry on top of the Sunday, I think I'm doing like an hour on the field of 68 on the late night tip, talking bets with my boys.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah, so you are nonstop today. We're gonna get to the 5 games today. I'm going to ask you to maybe give out 1 or 2 national championship winners. Our producer, Brandon Combs, I said it's not like marriage. The good thing is you don't have to be married to one team. And then Brandon let everybody know he's on his 3rd marriage. So that's good to know. But before we get to that, just want to ask you for some of your big thoughts on yesterday. ACC championship, Duke, they win, they cover without Cooper Flagg again. He's expected to play in the NCAA tournament. Houston, they do cover late against Arizona. They win the Big 12 title. Auburn goes down in the semis. Florida beats Bama. St. John's wins the Big East. Michigan State and Maryland both go down. And then, of course, we had some of the non-Power 4 conference championships be decided. But I'll just let you roll with it here in terms of your 2 or 3 biggest takeaways from what you saw yesterday, and maybe if they changed some of your thoughts going into the March Madness, going into the tournament, or if they kind of affirm something your biggest takeaways from yesterday's games.
Yeah, let's start with the Mammoth Conference. That is the SEC, because I have two really hard takeaways from the games yesterday. Number one, Florida's the best team in the country. I will fight anybody who disagrees with me on that front. I actually grabbed them at 13-1 to win the national title about a month ago now. And this team's an absolute wagon. Their starting five is prolific. They're unyielding. They really have no weaknesses. Ty Golden has done a masterful job down there in Gainesville. They hung 104 on Alabama. And they just blew them out in the second half. 104-82 was the final there. They're going to be a fix on the 1 seed line, I think, no matter what occurs today against the Tennessee Volunteers. And that's my second takeaway. It's really more Auburn than anything else. Auburn is unquestionably going to be the one-on-ones come the Selection Sunday show when Adam Zucker, says their name first on air. And they deserve that with the number of quarter-one victories they have racked up, 16 in total this season. But Auburn has shown some cracks in the dam. And I've been talking about this on BetMGM tonight for a good part of the last month, that they're showing a bit of a weakness here and there, and it's really on defensive end. They're north of number 100 in effective field goal percentage defense in the last 30 days. So I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, straight chalk, homie. I got to go with Janiah Broome, a guy that could be a front runner for the Wood Award. It's warranted. They got some guys that can absolutely shoot endlessly from outside, where they have been, stout in their own right. But if they're not D'ing up, and they're not a very good defensive rebounding team as well, they get a bad draw this evening. I think Auburn is not going to even make the Final Four. So they're looking like a very vulnerable number 1 seed. And then the last takeaway I have, Michigan. Holy hell, are you back? I did not see that coming. Trey Donaldson marching down the floor with seconds remaining and sinking Maryland. That was a beautiful effort across the board. I think they will get knocked off today by Bucky Badger and John Tonje, who I'm probably going to sprinkle a little action as well in the MOP market once that is reviewed on BetMGM later today. But I have about a dozen other takeaways, but I know you have a show to do, so I'll leave it at that.
Well, no, I'll just follow up. I'm glad that you feel the same way as I do about Auburn, because I do think that they peaked too early. I said, look, if it was February Madness, they probably would win the national championship. The problem is the tournament's in March for them, and losers of 3 out of their last 4. I worry about their ability to hit enough big shots. And like you said, a team that was so great defensively has not been that good defensively over the last couple of weeks. I disagree, though. I guess we are going to have to fight here because, maybe it's a New York City bias. I did say, disclaimer, I wasn't a big fan of Pitino last year. I think the Johnnies right now are a big, big problem for anybody that's in their way.
Yep.
3-headed monster that defends relentlessly. They've got great scorers. RJ Lewis and Zuby Ejiofor are 2 guys that can score at the buckets, can score mid-range. They don't rely on the 3. Do you like the Johnnies, just not as much as Florida, who you think is the best team in the country? Or do you think, are you kind of, cautious about St. John's?
I'm not cautious at all about St. John's. I fired off on a Final Four ticket 3 weeks ago. I believe at 11-1 or 12-1 is what I got it at there at BetMGM. I'm very confident this team is going to dance in San Antonio, do a little boot scooting boogie down there in Tejas. You're right. The team just really defends their tails off. As I've described them on BetMGM tonight, I think they're a faster version of the Houston Cougars. They're a team that once they get their defense set there at the half court, good luck trying to score on them because they just guard you relentlessly. And on top of that, too, they really seal off the defensive glass because of Zuby, and they generate a ton of second chances. They're just always on the attack. They're excellent in transition, one of the best transition teams in basketball. They play at a faster pace, as I mentioned, than Houston. They do have a number of bucket getters, and it's Pitino. And I've said this as well, and I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. He is the greatest basketball mind alive on the planet. Period. End of story. He just knows how to scheme right. He is a brilliant tactician and a guy that just pushes the right buttons at the right time. They may not blow a lot of teams out, kind of like Houston does. They're going to play a lot of these games close to the vest. But ultimately, they emerge victorious. They survive, they advance, and they march on. I have them right now as my lowest number 2 seed. I've had them there for the latter part, really, the last 4 weeks. I think that's where they're going to wind up when they have their name called tonight. And yes, I do feel confident no matter what the draw is, they're going to blaze a trail to good old San Antonio.
All right, that's Brad Evans, Noisy Huevos on Twitter, co-host, of course, of BetMGM Tonight, right here on the BetMGM Network. And again, you can catch him and our guy Nick Costos as soon as the brackets are done being revealed right here tonight for the instant reaction. You get Brad's gut bracket, which I love. I just said maybe you fill out 2 to 3 brackets, but I'm glad you've named one the gut bracket. Then you got the brain bracket. Let's look at today's games because we do have 5 conference championship games here today. Full disclosure, I'm betting Yale, and I think maybe 50% of that is a biased bet for me. My brother works there. We were watching the game yesterday where they almost collapsed. They go all the way down to the final seconds with Princeton. I think maybe that was just the semifinal game, get the nerves out of the way for a team that was a wagon in the Ivy League this year. I'm betting them 5.5 to cover that against Cornell today. But not most people will be, most normal people will be watching Tennessee, Florida at 1 Eastern and then Michigan, Wisconsin at 3:30 Eastern. Out of these 5 games today, you think Florida's the best team in the country. Is that an easy Gators cover the 5.5 for you? And then out of these 5 games, where else are you looking to maybe sprinkle some money today?
Yeah, I like Cornell plus the points. Apologies on that. That team can absolutely score, and Yale is barely getting by some of their opponents, and even of the meek variety. Now, Cornell doesn't defend worth a lick, but I think they will keep it close because that offense is dynamite. I kind of like Tennessee plus the points, quite frankly. I don't think they're going to win this game, and yeah, I'm going to pick Florida still to win the national title, but 5.5 is too many. And honestly, my favorite bet in that game is the over at 143.5. And some people might say, oh, well, Florida is an elite defensive team. Yeah, that is true. But wait, Brad, Tennessee is also an elite defensive team. Well, they were. They have shown some cracks in dam, much like Auburn in that capacity, but they have mitigated those issues by playing better offensively. As Chaz Lanier, Jordan Gainey, Zakai Ziegler, those guys have really gotten after it offensively and putting the ball through the basket. So I think that's going to be a fast-paced game, and I think defense is going to be secondary. I think the offense is going to reign supreme. So I really like the over on the 143.5. Elsewhere, initial leans in the 8-10. I'm going to take VCU. I'll lay the chalk. I know George Mason was a really trendy pick right here on the BetMGM network, not from me. And some of the other voices that were out there about a month ago, I'm not buying into it. VCU is a very unique matchup because that Havoc defense that Shaka Smart, installed years ago is still alive and well, and they're really getting after it. I like UAB. I grab it at 4.5. The line has moved now to 3.5. Memphis is lucky to be in this position right now, and a team that they could give up a possible bid to somebody else. So if you're Texas right now, you're the biggest fan of the Memphis Tigers, first and foremost, because you don't need that bid stealer in UAB taking away maybe your at-large spot in the NCAA tournament field. And then I'm going to lay it with Wisconsin. Maybe it's my bias of Michigan from what I had seen over the last 6 weeks prior to the Big Ten tournament. But the biggest issue with that Michigan team all year has been turnovers. They're coughing up on over 19% of their possessions. I love a lot of Soft Golden. I love Danny Wolf. They're a dynamic duo, and Wolf is such a unique talent playing basically a point forward position at 7 feet tall. His passing skills are just off the charts, and they're shooting the three a little bit better. But Wisconsin, man, they're a well-oiled machine offensively. And John Tonje is a guy just sopping wet from anywhere on the floor. And they close out games because they're number 1 in the country in free throw percentage on the season. They're shooting over 80% on those charity stripe attempts. So if it is another nip and tuck affair, I think Wisconsin will draw the whistles, sold away the game at the free throw line, and ultimately cover the 3.5. So there you go. All my initial handicaps on the slate today, and I cannot wait for the bracket to be revealed.
Yep, 6 Eastern Selection Sunday. Right after that, of course, tune in right here, BetMGM Network. You can listen on the Odyssey app. Our very own Brad Evans will be with Nick Costos breaking it down. I do love that 143.5 going over with Tennessee, Florida. Something that you didn't mention, but I'm sure is in the thought process too. Remember, third game in 3 days for these guys. Legs a little tired, defense maybe a little optional. 2 teams that know that at worst they're going to be on the 2 line here. I do like Tennessee, Florida over. We've got about 60 seconds left here, Brad. I know you said you're picking Florida to win the national title. Give me a Cinderella if you are so obliged to here. Maybe not a 15, a 16 seed, not a St. Peter's, not an FDU, but maybe a double-digit seed like North Carolina State last year. Do you have your eyes on a team that's going to be probably a 10 or worse in terms of their seeding that you think could make a run?
I'll give you two quickies. Number one, UC San Diego. The Tritons have been an advanced metrics darling all year. And if you watch them, the eye test verifies that. They have no weaknesses. If there is a weakness, it's on the glass. They're kind of a smallish team. But, man, they defend. They're one of the best kleptomaniac teams in the country, get a lot of steals, and they are so efficient offensively. And then I love Colorado State. Nick Clifford is a dude. Somebody needs to, draft him immediately on an NBA roster. He just has all kinds of NBA moves. He's averaging over 25 points per game here over the last 6 contests. They represent the Mountain West. They stole a bid yesterday, beating Boise State. Whoever draws them, likely as an 11 seed, is probably going to get bounced. And I think Colorado State is going to win a couple of games somewhere in the country in EFG offense the last 30 days.
All right, Brad, know you got a busy day, man. Thanks for the time. Catch it here later. Brad and Nick Costos right here on BetMGM Network. We'll be right back. More bets for you here on Selection Sunday. This is Sunday Bets.
Sunday Bets will be right back on the BetMGM Network, sponsored by BetMGM.
That was ESPN, the final call there. Florida putting a good old-fashioned ass whooping on the Alabama Crimson Tide yesterday in the SEC tournament semifinals. They are going to play the Tennessee Vols, the Volunteers, today. And look, I think the SEC tournament semifinals could be better than the Final Four that we end up getting. You had four teams in the top 8 in the country, 3, 4, 5, and 8. And basically every single one of those teams, not basically, every single one of those teams is either going to be on the 1 line or the 2 line at worst. I mean, it's what a wagon that conference has been this year. I know their Commissioner Greg Sankey, of course, pumping up the conference, said we expect 14 bids. Texas is hoping that is possible. We can get into teams that I think should, the last 4 in, first 4 out, who deserves to get in. North Carolina, Xavier, Indiana, all going to be watching with a lot of angst today. I don't think 14 teams should get in from the SEC, but that doesn't take away from just really what an unbelievable year that conference has had. They are no longer just a football powerhouse, man. They show that they know how to use NIL. They've got coaches that know how to recruit. And look, man, South ain't a bad spot to be. I'm in New Jersey, and I live right next to New York City. I work in New York City, but sometimes everything's bigger and better in the South, right? And that's how good the SEC has been this year in college hoops. So there you go. Florida versus Tennessee today. That's one of 5 conference championship games we've got today. We're going to get into these games in just a moment, but don't forget, as soon as the bracket is announced today, stop what you're doing and tune in right here to the BetMGM network for a special You Better You Bet countdown to tip-off with Nick Costos and the guy that we just had on last segment, our very own Brad Evans, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern tonight, breaking down the bracket and giving you the edge as soon as the markets open, because that's the first thing that all of us sports bettors, college basketball fans are going to want to do. What's the spread on the 8 versus 9 game that we love? What's the spread on the 4 versus 13? Who's your trendy 12 seed? Because sometimes only one 12 seed gets through. Other times 3 of them get through to the second round. So there's going to be plenty to talk about. Of course, following our show, we've got Inside the Betting Lines for from 12 to 4 p.m. Eastern, Bet Nation, and then again, a very special You Better You Bet countdown to tip-off tonight, 7 o'clock Eastern, as soon as the brackets are revealed, with Nick and Brad. Okay, so yesterday, again, Florida rolls Alabama. Tennessee able to upset Auburn 70 to 65. That sets up a tantalizing SEC championship game between the Florida Gators and the Tennessee Volunteers. Right now on BetMGM, Florida a 4.5-point favorite. That has actually come down a point in literally just the last 5 minutes, because we just had Brad Evans on, and he goes, you know what? I like Florida to win the national championship. I still think it's too many points. He said he was leaning Tennessee to cover 5.5. Now it's 4.5. So it does feel like that the public and that the markets are moving towards Tennessee here today. And look, Zakai Ziegler and Tennessee, they're a great team. I don't know if I have a lean on this spread, if I'm going to be honest here. Conference championship games are normally the toughest ones to predict. Normally you can nail the quarterfinals, you can nail the semifinals. The championship games are very tough to predict, but I see a Florida team that has scored 89 points or more in 5 consecutive games, and they do defend pretty well, despite, again, like you're looking at these scores for anybody that maybe hasn't been involved in a lot of college hoops this year, and you're saying, what, like this is turning into the NBA. It's a track meet. It's a bunch of shooting threes. Yes, that doesn't mean teams don't defend, right? Like everybody's knock on the NBA. Nobody plays defense. Nobody cares. Like, I want to watch college basketball. Those kids care. Those kids defend. Yes, they defend. That also just is how far we've come as a sport, where you've got incredible shot makers, guys that can knock down threes at an incredible clip. So yes, that's why you're seeing a bunch of scores that touch 170 points, touch 180 points, both teams in the 90s. And that is how Florida has played their basketball this year. They've had a couple of duds this year in spots where you wouldn't normally expect it. Right? I mean, Florida lost to Missouri at home in mid-January. They got destroyed by Tennessee on the road by 20 points back on February 1st. And then they lost to Georgia on the road by 5, a team that's unranked, a team that's not getting into the NCAA tournament. So, Georgia probably is going to get in the NCAA tournament. If 13 or 14 teams are getting in, the Bulldogs can probably find themselves in the big dance. But, again, a team that really hasn't been ranked for most of the year. But when Florida's on, and they seem to be on here, not only in this tournament, right? They beat Missouri by 14 on Friday, crushed Alabama yesterday. they're a tough team to stop. They're really a tough team to stop. And if you want to lean on the head-to-head and just say, well, Tennessee beat them by 20, I'm going to roll. I'm getting 4.5, 5.5 points with the Volunteers now. Sure, I'm going to take them. I just do think that if you were lined with me and Brad and we think this is going to be an offensive game today, I just see that going the Florida Gators' way. So a small lean for me on Florida to cover the 4.5. But just like Brad said, I was totally in agreement. I love the over in this game, 143.5. I think both teams easily touch 70. And despite your thoughts on maybe, well, it's conference championship game, maybe, a bit of a nervy start, but a couple of butterflies. Again, Florida's going to be a 1 seed. Tennessee, you can say maybe they're trying to play for a 1 seed if they win their conference championship. I don't see them getting on the 1. I think they're firmly on the 2. So 2 teams that kind of feel locked in. Again, it's a conference championship game, right? So they're going to care. But also, third game in 3 days, it does feel like legs could play a factor in this one. Defense a little bit optional at times where it's just going to be, all right, here's a catch and shoot 3. I'm a little bit slow on that closeout. And look, if guys aren't knocking down shots, then, that's why we call it gambling. That's why it's sports betting. But I do like the over. I love the over Tennessee, Florida. We've also got the Big Ten championship game coming up today at 3:30, Wisconsin, Michigan. No read for me on that one. 2 teams that pulled off upsets yesterday with Wisconsin taking down Sparty. Michigan State, by the way, another team that I can't wait to fade in the tournament, right? It feels like that's kind of the stereotype for Michigan State over the last couple of years. But, I see a team, and I'm not impressed by them. They get a ton of turnovers, sure, but I don't really trust Jace Richardson, who was their 6th man. Now he's been slotted into a starting spot, and he's been phenomenal for them. I don't trust him, to score 20 points every game, and that's what they need. They need that because they just don't get enough scoring out of their other main guys, out of Jackson Kohler, out of Jeremy Fears, out of Jaden Akins. I don't trust that team to consistently be able to knock down shots. So that's a team that when the brackets come out, I see Michigan State. I see an opportunity for me to take a lower seed in that region and put them in the Sweet 16 because Michigan State is either going to be a 2 or a 3. And, I'll be looking to, I don't know about the first round, maybe if they're 19-point favorites or 15-point favorites against a weaker team, maybe we're talking about a nice cover there, for a mid-major conference champion. But second round, I'm going to be looking to fade Michigan State, them and Auburn, 2 teams I really don't trust going in the NCAA tournament. And then Michigan got crushed Purdue, and then they come back to squeak past Maryland. And that's what we've got. Michigan-Wisconsin Big Ten title game. 3.5-point spread in favor of the Badgers. The over-under in that one is 150.5. Defense has kind of been optional, or scoring has been high in the Big Ten all year. No feel on the spread for me. No feel on the over-under in that game. That one's a pass for me. And then you got 3 other games. 3 of the lesser-known conference championships. You got the American with Memphis, who is ranked number 16 in the country, going up against the UAB Dragons. Memphis, 3.5-point favorites, and that is the second highest total in the game today, on the day, 158.5. Memphis versus UAB. And I would lean UAB in this one. Memphis has kind of squeaked past both of their opponents. Had to come back to beat Wichita State. Also struggled to close out Tulane. Got lucky in the last couple of seconds there just to win that game. So it feels like they haven't been very sharp. And again, it's only a 3.5-point spread, but I think UAB can keep this one close. They did lose at home to Memphis a couple of weeks ago, and they did get crushed by them on the road by 23. So I think you can, if for nothing else, if you just like how UAB sounds and you could say, hey, tough to beat a team 3 times, you could go with UAB in this one. That's where I will be going. Not a ton of confidence, but I do think UAB, just with how shaky Memphis has been in this conference tournament, the UAB Dragons can win that one. You got the A-10 championship, George Mason, VCU. VCU, 8.5-point favorites. That's a pretty sizable favorite for a conference championship game when you got 2 teams that have 26 wins or more here. The Rams and George Mason were the top 2 teams in the conference all year long, both of them 15-3 in conference play. And for me, throw out the X's and O's in this one. Throw out which team you think, has the advantage in terms of size or three-point shooting. I see 8.5 points, and sometimes that's just too much for me. That's just too much. So I'm taking George Mason in this game. They've played VCU once in the regular season on the road in Virginia. They lost by 16, but I like George Mason here. They've won both of their conference championship games they've won both of their conference games, by double digits here. And I think the Patriots have balanced scoring. I love Jalen Haynes, who dropped 22 points yesterday, and is a guy that doesn't necessarily need to shoot the three. Also had 7 rebounds and 6 assists. He's their do-it-all guy. But Darius Maddox is a guy that can knock down the three. And I think they have enough bench scoring, too. Where, again, you're looking at teams that are playing 3 games in 3 days. This is the only other time we really see this is when we have those Caribbean tournaments in Thanksgiving week. So legs are going to be a little bit tired for these guys today. And I just think for 2 teams that have been at the top of the conference all year, I mean, I get it. VCU with the metrics, they've been a great team. I think 8.5, way too many. So I'm almost blindly, I've watched both of those teams sparingly this year, I'm going to be honest, but blindly, I'm taking George Mason with the 8.5 points. The bet I love the most, though, today, Ivy League championship. I love Yale to cover the 5.5. And then for me, 159.5. That is a massive total. Massive total. I know Yale shoots the 3 so well. Remember Poulikitis, the kid that set the tournament on fire for a round or 2 last year? That's too many points. Too many points. And Yale had a very cagey game with Princeton yesterday. I think they bounce back and win this game today. But I'm going under on the 159.5 between Yale and Cornell in the Ivy League championship. That's 12 Eastern. As soon as we get off, as soon as this show ends here on Sunday Bets. But it's a loaded day, and then we've got the brackets coming up. I've got more hot takes and hot cakes for you when we come back. More bracket talk, more NFL free agency talk next hour as well. It's the Sunday Bets. Pat Boyle here on the BetMGM Network.
Sunday Bets will be right back on the BetMGM Network, sponsored by BetMGM. This is Sunday Bets on the BetMGM Network, sponsored by BetMGM.
All right, hour number 2 of our program here on Selection Sunday. The madness has already begun, and it's about to heat up a whole lot more. This is Sunday Bets here on the BetMGM Network. I'm your host, Pat Boyle. Sean Marash, my normal co-host. He is off. Of course he is on Selection Sunday. Now, we kid. He had a vacation planned for a long time ago to St. Martin, so he is soaking up the sunshine and the beaches while we are soaking up the madness, getting your brackets ready. Multiple printouts. If you are, if you're a guy or a gal that likes to fashion yourself with a couple of different brackets, I said probably 2 to 3 is the sweet spot for me. Anything after that, and I think you're just kind of moving pieces around on a chessboard here. But we had Brad Evans on last hour, host of BetMGM Tonight. You can go back and listen on the free Odyssey app. If you want to hear that interview, Brad gave out his leans for the 5 conference championship games today, who he thinks is going to win the national championship. And, Cinderella or 2 that he'd be looking to back. And, of course, keep it tuned here all day today, especially once the brackets are revealed. You want to jump right back here and get the early expert opinions from our very own Brad Evans and our guy Nick Costos. A special You Better You Bet countdown to tip-off 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern tonight. As soon as the brackets come out, Brad and Nick will be breaking them down. Brad will put forth his gut bracket. And you'll get those spreads coming out almost, just probably during the show, right? Because from what I can remember the last couple of years, by the time I go to bed on Selection Sunday night, those spreads for the first round games are basically all out, by 10, 11 o'clock Eastern, if not before that. So you definitely want to keep it tuned here all day. But that's not all we got going on here. We've also got some tremendous golf as well. And of course, as I go to do the read, I get logged out of my Gmail. So bear with me 1 second while I pull that up here. And while we get that rolling, we'll get you the read on the action that we got going on with some golf here. But as we always do here on Sunday Bets, to start the show, to start every hour, all of the 3 hours here, we either give you an opinion or we give you a bet. It's called Hot Takes and Hot Cakes. Let's get it rolling.
Fresh off the griddle and straight from the horse's mouth, it's time for Hot Cakes and Takes with Sean Marash and Pat Boyle on the BetMGM Network.
That's right. I've got a hot take for you that I don't think is a hot take. And if you listen to some of my football takes last year, you'll realize what I'm about to spit might become gospel, why you might want to put a little bit of a closer ear to the ground. But first, our producer of this fine program, Brandon Combs, our guy out in Chicago, Bears fan, Blackhawks fan, Cubs fan, Bulls fan, I think. He's on his 3rd marriage, in case you didn't hear it last hour. He's got a hot cake. He's got a bet for you today. Brandon, what's going on, bro? You got a little hockey action for us today.
I do, and you're correct. I am all Chicago everything. I even though the Bulls ownership is terrible, I still do love them. And Mitch is gonna be mad at me for saying that since we're on 670 and we carry the Bulls games, but it's true. So no, I have some hockey for us. I like the over 6.5 in Vegas and Detroit today. I love that play. Detroit not playing very well as of late, so they're giving up a ton of goals. But they've also scored 9 goals in their last 2 games as well. And then you look over at the Vegas Knights, really good hockey team right now, first in the Pacific Division. And they're coming off of, they've scored 7 goals in their last 2 games. So the over 6.5 to me, while both teams are also giving up an average of 4 goals per game in their last 4 games. So I like the over 6.5. I think it's kind of a shoe-in. So that's plus, what did I have it here? I just lost it too. I see now I'm like you. Now I'm just losing things as I'm talking about them.
The rundown can be tricky, man. It's easy to get lost in the sauce on the rundown.
No, yeah, it absolutely is. So it's actually plus 210 right now for the over 6.5.
Wow. So you're taking an alternate over.
Yes.
Beautiful. All right. Goals aplenty in the Golden Knights and the Red Wings game. That's what Brandon Combs is giving us here. A little hockey action to mix in amongst all the college basketball. We do have NBA tonight as well. I got some NBA bets we'll get your way as well. But also, don't forget, you can listen to us. Like you said, we're on 670 The Score in Chicago at times, all throughout North America. You can listen on the Odyssey app, but you can watch us as well. We're live on YouTube. Just search the BetMGM Network and hit that subscribe button. Again, and keep up with all of our social media accounts, especially on a day like today and a week like this. On Twitter, on X at BetMGM Network. Same thing on Instagram. And yes, we're on TikTok as well at BetMGM Network _. And again, even if you do miss the action, like I said, if you want to hear Brad Evans' picks, who has been a college basketball fiend all year long, we had him on 40 minutes ago. You can listen live. You can also go back to see what you missed on the free Odyssey app. And not only that, you can interact with us. You can leave us a voice message by going to the free Odyssey app. You search BetMGM Network, click on the microphone icon. You can leave a question or comment that we can play on the air. So we're all about the listener. We're all about the fans. We want you guys to fire off your takes, your bets, what you think is going to come through, what team you think is going to win the national championship. So don't forget, you can do that as well. And then, like I mentioned before, we've also got some great golf promotions going on at BetMGM. So we want to introduce the newest sport to our Second Chance family of promotions. Golf Players Championship this week. We want to ensure bettors know BetMGM is the best place to bet golf. So if you place an outright wager on a player to win, but they finish in second, which does include ties, if you finish tied for second, you get your stake back in cash. As a reminder, BetMGM is the only place to get your full winnings for ties and dead heats in golf to go along with best-in-class odds and live betting experience. And this offer is only available for PGA Tour events, though, and the 4 majors. So there you go. A lot of good stuff going on. Just in case you're not a huge college basketball fan, doesn't mean that you can't get in on all the great action that's going on across the BetMGM app and right here on the BetMGM network. Okay, so you heard Brandon, our producer, give you over 6.5, an alternate over between Vegas and Detroit. I do want to mix in a little football here because Sean and I were on last Sunday, which was basically the start of legal tampering, the start of free agency. And since then, hundreds of deals have been given out. I think Adam Schefter tweeted over $4 billion in committed contracts have already been given out. So the NFL just continues to pump and print money, pump out cash. We've got quarterbacks on new teams. We've got wide receivers on new teams. We've still got trades. We've still got some fallout. We still have some quarterbacks that need to make decisions. Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, those guys still on the board. But we've already gotten a couple of big moves. Last week, Geno Smith, the big trade to the Las Vegas Raiders, that kind of started it all. Cooper Kupp is now going to be with the Seahawks. Sam Darnold has signed with the Seahawks. So Seattle, kind of a little dark horse team in the NFC West. But this is something that I'm going to give to you here that I've said for weeks now, since our show kicked back on after the Super Bowl ended, for the last month here. And it's a move that's, for me, being a New York City guy working and hosting shows on WFAN, this has been something that I was screaming for weeks. And I'm glad that I got my gift because I truly do believe that Justin Fields is going to lead the Jets to the playoffs this year. I think this Jets team has the talent still. I think you look at a Jets team that went 5-12 last year with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. And it's easy to look at Aaron Rodgers' numbers and just say, well, he was like top 10 in yards and touchdown passes. He wasn't that bad. It's the Jets of the Jets. They can ruin anybody, right? And, their defense stunk, and they fired Robert Saleh, who wasn't a good head coach, and their GM, Joe Douglas, stunk as well. This wasn't Aaron Rodgers' fault, and don't let the New York media tell you that because it's not true. No. Trust me. It is true. Aaron Rodgers is washed. Aaron Rodgers stinks now. Justin Fields in 2025 is truly a better quarterback than what Aaron Rodgers will be in 2025. And Justin Fields is a guy that has gotten a raw deal now the last couple of years by Chicago, who dumped him to go for Caleb Williams, who jury's kind of still out on Caleb Williams after his rookie season. He was horrible to begin the year. Then he had some nice moments, didn't turn the ball over for 9 games, but wasn't really taking shots down the field. But hey, now he's got Ben Johnson as his head coach, so I know Bears fans probably have as much optimism as they've had in recent memory But Justin Fields then goes to Pittsburgh, starts the first 6 games of the year, throws just 1 interception, runs and throws for 10 combined touchdowns. The Steelers are 4-2, and yet they bench him for Russell Wilson. And there's a lot of people that just kind of take that for gospel, as if Mike Tomlin and the Steelers literally haven't botched every quarterback decision since Ben Roethlisberger retired. They always get it wrong at the quarterback position, whether it's drafting, whether it's who to start, whether it's who to play, Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph. They actually had something with Justin Fields, even though, yes, the offense, they got off to a bit of a slow start. Remember, Boswell kicked 6 field goals in week 1 to beat the Falcons. I'm not saying Justin Fields was like an all-pro, but he was good enough to keep that starting job. He was building enough in that offense on his third head coach in 4 years, on another new offensive coordinator, another new system that he had to learn. And let's not act like Arthur Smith is God's green gift to earth. Again, the Steelers' offensive coordinators the last couple of years have been Matt Canada and now Arthur Smith. My 8-year-old nephew with a box of crayons can call better calls than those two guys for that Steelers offense. And Justin Fields was playing well. And in 2025, that is exactly what the Jets need. That's exactly what the Jets need. Justin Fields gives them a dual threat. And I believe that Justin Fields has excelled enough and has progressed enough in throwing the football that he's not just a guy that can, he's not just like another Daniel Jones, a guy that can only run and can't throw the football. He showed you could throw the football last year. He has 66% completion percentage. Threw for 1,100 yards in 6 games with a Steelers offense that really was just George Pickens and not a whole lot else. Not a whole lot else. No disrespect to Pat Freiermuth, but that Steelers offense isn't anything to write home about. And if they would have stuck with him for the rest of the year, the Steelers, not only they would have made the playoffs, maybe they would have been able to knock off the Ravens. Maybe they would have been able to keep it close against the Ravens, but they had no shot with Russell Wilson. And now here we are, and I'm saying, look, this is a Jets team that has the talent. Yes, everything that could have gone wrong went wrong for the Jets. I'm not solely placing their struggles last year on Aaron Rodgers, because the offensive line stunk once again, and the Jets were so predictable that teams just sat on the run. They stopped Breece Hall, who didn't have a great year by his own merit anyway, but teams just sold out for the run, and it was like, all right, Aaron Rodgers, try to beat us. You're a 40-year-old that's coming off a torn Achilles. You're not mobile. You don't throw the ball like you did in your prime, and it was a very predictable Jets offense. But also the defense was soft. The defense had a down year. They did fire their head coach too early. Their GM made some horrible decisions in terms of bringing, basically kowtowing and bowing down to the czar of Aaron Rodgers, and everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. So I look at this Jets team that 2 years ago had a lot of the same roster, guys on this roster, and won 7 games with Zach Wilson and Timmy Boyle and a collection of stiffs playing quarterback. A lot of those guys are still here. Garrett Wilson, by the way, Justin Fields, quarterback at Ohio State. You've got that connection. You've got that chemistry now. Who I do expect to have a big bounce back year. And yes, it's a Jets defense that has Sauce Gardner, that still has great players, even though they lost DJ Reed in free agency. This is a Jets defense that I'm expecting to be a top 10 unit again, much like they were 2 years ago and the year before that. So I look at what went wrong with this Jets team last year and what could go right with Justin Fields this year. And I look at a new head coach with Aaron Glenn. I look at a new GM in Darren Muji. I look at Garrett Wilson being a stud receiver. I look at Breece Hall as being a stud running back. Braylon Allen, too, by the way, who's not a bad compliment to Breece Hall. They do have to add another receiver either in the draft or in free agency, because Alan Lazard's probably not going to be on this team, and right now he's number 2 on the depth chart. So this Jets offense does need to improve. But I said it last year. Pat Boyle, if you were listening here on the BetMGM network, if you were listening to our Sunday show, I told you last year Sam Darnold was going to have a career rejuvenation. He was going to have a Geno Smith 2022 season, and that the Vikings were going to go over their win total. I didn't think they would make the playoffs. I didn't think they'd win 14 games. But that's the kind of season I'm now expecting from Justin Fields, a guy that it didn't work out with his first team. Remember Darnold went to Carolina, then he went to San Francisco. I think Justin Fields is in a position to succeed this year. I think he's going to have the season that Sam Darnold had last year. He's going to have the season that Geno Smith had in 2022. This is about to be the best season of Justin Fields' career, and I see a Jets team that still has talent, and Justin Fields is going to snap that Jets playoff curse They are going to the playoffs this year. I'll be betting it. I'll be betting the Jets over win total because I think Miami in that AFC East is fraudulent, and I don't think the Patriots are as ready to make a huge leap as everybody else thinks they will. And again, I'm just putting a lot of faith and a lot of belief in Justin Fields. Last year, you would have laughed at me and called me crazy if you heard me say that about Sam Darnold. And I got to pat myself on the back because I was right about it. I have that same kind of belief in Justin Fields this year as a guy that can beat you with the legs, that is going to be a menace running the ball and trying to stop, and also he's going to show you a lot with the arm this year. All right, we'll take a short break. We'll come back. Mike DeCourcy is going to join us next here on Sunday Bets. I'm your host, Pat Boyle. This is the BetMGM Network. Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back.
Sunday Bets will be right back on the BetMGM Network, sponsored by BetMGM.
Spreads, props, parlays. If it's bettable, we're talking about it. You're tuned in to Sunday's Bets on the BetMGM Network.
Welcome back here on Sunday's Bets here on the BetMGM Network. I'm your host, Pat Boyle. Our normal round pudgy friend, Sean Marash, is off today. He is on vacation. Again, the guy takes off on Selection Sunday. Go figure. But we bust his chops. He's had it planned for months. So, I'm holding down the fort. Sean will be back with us next week where, believe it or not, we'll be breaking down the last day of the second round of the NCAA tournament. We'll be looking ahead to Sweet 16, Elite 8. First weekend, we'll be looking to catch our breath before a fanatic frenzy of a Sunday 1 week from now. So, again, you want to tune in right back here for us here. All of our reactions on the initial first 2 rounds and the first 3 days of the tournament right here next Sunday morning. But again, in a mere 8 hours from now, we'll have the brackets revealed on Selection Sunday, and you want to keep it here all day long. As soon as the bracket is announced, stop what you're doing, tune in right here to the BetMGM Network for a special You Better You Bet countdown to tip-off with our guys, Nick Costos and Brad Evans, from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern tonight, breaking down the bracket, giving you the edge for when the markets open, which could happen by the end of that show. We could get all the spreads and the futures and the region winners as soon as 8, 9 o'clock Eastern tonight. So you definitely want to keep it right here on the BetMGM Network. And you want to keep it here right now because we've got a guy that covers college basketball with his blood, sweat, and his tears. Sporting News college basketball columnist. He's also a bracketologist for Fox Sports. You can find him on X, on Twitter at TSN Mike. Mike DeCourcy joins us now on the phones. Mike, it's Pat Boyle. What's going on, man? Thanks for the time.
Good morning, Pat. How are you?
I'm doing good, brother. I'm ready to go, man. I'm sure that it's been maybe some sleepless nights for you. I'm checking out your bracket forecast for Fox College Hoops. I like what I'm seeing. We can get to that in just a moment. And, of course, like every good bracketologist should give their takes on last 4 in, first 4 out. But just, yesterday, what a wild day of college hoops. Plenty of big conference championship games to talk about. And I think we should start with the SEC because it's been a historic year for the conference. I know their commissioner, Greg Sankey's talking about 14 teams getting in. Texas thinks they have a chance. If they get a bid stealer today, maybe they're feeling a lot better about yesterday. But just those 2 games, Tennessee taking down Auburn, and then Florida just boat racing Alabama in the second half. Your takeaways on those 2 games, and I guess really what you think in terms of who the best team in the SEC is as we get ready to start the tournament and we have this conference championship game coming up today.
Well, Pat, I think at this point, the question of who the best team is isn't really that relevant in a lot of ways. The most accomplished team is Auburn. And even what happened yesterday doesn't change that. There's too much of a volume of work. But is Auburn the best? Does that mean they're the best team? That doesn't really register for me. To me, it's what team is built best to win it, if anyone in the SEC. That kind of is the question that anybody would want. 24 hours from now, that's the question you're going to want to answer, right? If you're going to pick a team in the SEC, which one of them can then go on and win the 6 games that are remaining between them and the national championship? And that's what I think. If you look at it right now, I think Florida is the team that you have to look at because the qualities that you usually need to win it, they have a lot of them covered. I mean, they're one of the top teams in the country in both offense and defense. 3rd in offensive efficiency, 7th in defensive efficiency. So they have that covered. They are very effective at protecting the rim. Not a great team, but they're getting a decent amount as opposed to some teams like Purdue, which is a terrific team, but doesn't get anything in terms of rim protection. So they at least have guys that can throw back a shot now and then. They have although Walter Clayton is not exactly the guy who spent his whole life playing point guard, he's done a really proficient job there, and he's that guy for them right now. They've decided it works, and it does. And although he's not someone that's been that his whole life, he at least has shown over a full season in maybe the strongest league we've seen, at least relative to its year, he can handle that. And then do they have a pro? Do they have a first-round guy? And that's the question that probably every team in the SEC except Alabama struggles with a little bit, as good as they are. And, of course, Texas, but we're not talking about Texas being a championship contender, or Arkansas. We're talking about the teams at the very top. They're all excellent. But do they have that player? A year ago, Tennessee did, but they weren't able to get through Purdue. Now, I'm not sure who does. Florida would be the one, maybe. Condon can fit that bill, maybe. And that's why. And the fact that they have been so dominant at so many games, that they've beaten the best teams in that league by significant margins at times. Tennessee by 30. Yesterday, you saw what happened to Bama. They won at Auburn. That's a team that I think that if you said, name me the SEC team that can win this, that'd be the first one I'd circle.
All right, Mike DeCourcy with us here. Mike, I know some other bracketologists still have Auburn as the number one overall seed. And like you said, there's been so much of a volume of what they've done this year. But, I mean, I got to disagree if you also think that Auburn should be the number one overall seed, because it's, why even play the conference championship games then, right? Auburn's lost 3 out of their last 4. Duke is a team that just steamrolled through the ACC tournament. I know they almost slipped up against North Carolina, but they did it basically without Cooper Flagg for the entire tournament. Duke has proven that even without the best player in the country, they can still roll right through their conference tournament. So do you also believe that Auburn still should be the number one overall seed? Because I thought it was, in my opinion, a legit question whether or not Auburn deserves to have a 1 seed with the way that they finished up the season. But I think I'm in the minority in that opinion.
Patrick, what you have to remember is finished up means nothing. It means that you lost, but if they had lost those games in October or in November, that it would have been the same. Finished up is something that fans often get caught up in, and some media analysts get caught up in too. But it may surprise, but I did, and I haven't done this in a while because it's not a rule anymore, and I don't have to get it kicked out. But back in the 2000s, I did like a 5-year study of does it matter how you finish relative to how you perform in the NCAA tournament. And it consistently came back year after year. No, it doesn't matter. And other than perhaps you lost a bunch of games at the end of the year because you got injured, that would be a different question. But just in terms of overall efficacy, you look at Florida 2007. Florida in 2007 had the whole group of champions back from 2006, that great group with Joakim Noah and Al Horford. They were tremendous. And that team went down the stretch and they clinched the SEC title with like 4 games left. And then they just kind of said, whatever, this doesn't matter anymore. Like, we're still wanting to win, but it doesn't matter as much. And when it matters more to them than it matters to you, that has an impact. And so Auburn at this point has done so much. Now, I wrote about 2 weeks ago, I said that I thought that they could lose 3 more times before the end of the season and still be the 1 overall seed. I did not anticipate that they would test that theory, but they built a mountain of achievements that was so much above everyone else that I don't think anyone else can climb to get there by now. But I mean, you talked about Duke and what they did, but you're discounting the fact that the ACC is by far the weakest conference of all the majors this year, and by far the worst it's ever been. It's just not. They played terrific basketball, and I think that they're the team to beat in this thing. But that's not the same as they've done the most by Selection Sunday.
All right, Mike DeCourcy with us at TSN Mike on X or Twitter, a Sporting News college basketball columnist and a bracketologist for Fox Sports. Okay, so we will agree to disagree. I will ask you really quickly here, if you could, your 4 1 seeds, who would they be ahead of Selection Sunday today?
For those of us who do the brackets, both on a professional and amateur basis, that's the easiest question. I don't know whether or not it would change if Tennessee were able to beat Florida today. It's possible, I suppose, but I have to really look at that after I get done with the current bracket. But Duke, Auburn, Houston, and Florida, today, as we speak, it's the easiest call any of us will have to make.
Okay. And then let's look at the flip side here, because again, we potentially could have a bid stealer today if Memphis loses to UAB. But in terms of, let's assume chalk, I guess, for the time being. Which teams that we've talked about in terms of being on the bubble, North Carolina, Texas, Xavier, Indiana, any other team that you want to throw in that you think could be a surprise today for one way or the other? When you look at teams on the bubble, who do you think is getting in and who do you think is missing out?
This is the exact opposite of what the previous question, which is this is the most difficult question any of us will face, and probably the committee as well. Because you can find massive problems with every single one of the last team resumes. See, I think Indiana, again, I could find a massive problem with their resume as well, but I think that they are in because they have enough high-quality wins and the right metrics that they would seem to be the one that if Memphis were to lose today, they would be the last team in. But as it stands now, with Memphis as a presumed winner, then that last spot is just agony for me, and it's partly because I don't know how the committee's going to react. I don't think Carolina would even be in the conversation if their name were South Carolina, let's say, or let's say Wyoming, or one. It's just with their resume, 1-11 against Quadrant 1. Beat a lot of really less of poor teams down the stretch. As I mentioned before about the ACC, prior to their Duke game, they had won, I think, 7 games in a row. And I did the math on those 7 wins. And those 7 wins, their victims in that stretch averaged a net ranking of 155. I mean, that's 155 was the average. The worst team in the Big Ten was 114th at that point. 155 today is Loyola Marymount. So you beat 8 Loyola Marymount's in a row, and that's supposed to get you in the tournament. I just don't see how that. I don't see how that adds up. They have one team that will be in the field that they've defeated, and that's UCLA on a neutral floor. That's it. So I don't see the Carolina case, but I fear the Carolina case in the sense of what the committee might do. So I have to consider it. I feel a little bit less strongly about Xavier in terms of the negative, but the 1-9 is still problematic. They have more wins against quality opposition, Marquette, UConn, et cetera. Creighton, I think they have one. But again, it's just you'd like them to have done more. Texas is the team that I would put in and will probably be the last team in for me on my morning bracket. Because they have beaten more quality opposition than anyone. Now, they lost a lot of quad 2 home games that hurt them. It'd be easily in if they'd won half of those. I think there were 4 that they lost, and they were home games against they were good teams in the SEC, teams like, off the top of my head, Vandy, people like that, that are in that range. I don't know if it was specifically Vandy. I don't have it in front of me, but they beat a lot of high quality teams, but they lost those types of games. I know they lost one to Oklahoma at home. That was the season ender, and that's what a lot of us thought got them knocked out for good. But then they had that great comeback in the SEC tournament with 2 big wins. So I have them in, and if it were, like if somebody put me in charge today, that's the team I would put in awaiting the Memphis result. While West Virginia, San Diego State, and Vandy, I have Vandy slightly ahead of West Virginia to get out of the first 4. I have West Virginia playing San Diego, or West Virginia and San Diego State as the first 2 teams in the first 4. Indiana the next after that, and Texas waiting.
All right, Mike, we got about 60 seconds here. I know you wrote a piece about Robert Jones of Norfolk State, now the great job that he's done. Out of all the smaller schools, the Cinderellas, if you will, that you've covered, if you've got one on your mind that you think can make a deep run, who would that be?
I watched UC San Diego last night play against UC Irvine, which is a terrific team, very well coached. This is UC San Diego's first year, I believe, not in Division I, but of eligibility for the tournament. And they're very good. They shoot the basketball really well. They execute defensively really well. I mean, I don't know who they're going to wind up playing. I expect that they will be a 12. They could be an 11. So I don't know which on the 5 or 6 line they'll end up playing, but whoever it is, their coach better get their guys ready. Make sure that they understand that UC San Diego can really ball. That's a team that I like a lot.
Mike DeCourcy, we got 10 seconds here really quickly. Mike DeCourcy fills out his bracket. Who's he got winning the national championship? What do you got cutting the nets down?
Yeah, without seeing a bracket, I go Duke.
All right. He likes the Blue Devils. Mike DeCourcy, who is on Twitter at X at TSN Mike, bracketologist for Fox Sports. You want to check up with him on Twitter today for his thoughts. Mike, appreciate the time, man.
Thanks, Patrick.
All right, there you go. We'll be right back with more NFL free agency stuff and more March Madness. This is Sunday Bets. I'm Pat Boyle. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back on the BetMGM Network.
Sunday Bets will be right back on the BetMGM Network, sponsored by BetMGM.
Smart money, sharp plays, and big paydays. This is Sunday's Bets with Sean Marash and Pat Boyle, only on the BetMGM Network.
All right, EK, get your phone out like everybody else. Right. Shohei's back up.
Hey, be quiet.
Led off the game.
No, you can't talk.
Quiet, please. Ohtani, right field. Ohtani with a titanic swing in Tokyo.
Now you can cheer. Now you can make some noise, right?
How about that? That's Spectrum Sportsnet LA. Ohtani goes deep. Like, literally, you couldn't have scripted it better. Ohtani home run in a Japan exhibition game against the Hanshin Tigers, who, by the way, producer Brandon Combs. Brandon, get on in here. You told me that the Hanshin Tigers beat the Dodgers and the Cubs in all 4 combined exhibition games that they played. Welcome back here, Sunday's Bets. I'm your host, Pat Boyle. Co-host Sean Marash is off. He'll be back with us next week. Brandon's a big Cubbies fan, and amidst all the March Madness that we're talking about today, Selection Sunday, NFL free agency, 1 week in the books, we have baseball opening day 2 days from now. By this time Tuesday, we'll have a winner and we'll have a loser in that Cubbies-Dodgers game. And what is it, 6 a.m. Eastern? They're going to start here once again. Baseball starting the season basically 10 days in advance in Japan. The reigning World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers taking on the Chicago Cubs Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning. Wake up early, fire up the espresso machine if you want to see Shohei and the machine that is the LA Dodgers take on the Cubbies. And we got 2 Japanese pitchers for this showcase. Yoshi Yamamoto for the Dodgers, Shota Imanaga coming off a phenomenal rookie season with the Cubbies. And Brandon, your thoughts on this game and this series coming into the year, and maybe should we let the Hanshin Tigers into Major League Baseball because they're a wagon?
Yeah, look, apparently the Hanshin Tigers are the greatest team ever assembled because they not only did they beat the Cubs twice, but they also beat what some people are naming as the greatest opening day lineup of all time, which I think is wild as well, in the Los Angeles Dodgers. Look, I think the Hanshin Tigers are a wagon. I think you're correct. And not only am I a Cubs fan, though, I'm just a baseball fan, man. The guys give me on BetMGM tonight when I'm on Monday through Friday with them. They give me so much grief, especially Ryan Horvat, because I once said that I love baseball more than I love my wife and kids, and that's just a true statement. So I don't know why I get so much grief, but it is what it is. I don't like baseball in Japan, though. I don't like. It's not that I don't like baseball in Japan. Let me rephrase that. I don't like Major League Baseball going to Japan, especially in the middle of spring training, and then you take some time off, you play games that matter, then you come back for 7 days, play games that don't matter, and then you go back into the regular season. I don't like that. I didn't like it when they did it a couple years ago in London in the middle of the season for the Cubs. That kind of screwed their whole season that year. They were hot going into London, and then they lose in London, and then they come back from London, and they just, their season just got derailed. So, but it is good for the fans of Japan, I guess. You get to see Shohei Ohtani. You get to see Yamamoto versus Shota Imanaga in the first game. Both teams, really they're aces of both teams going in that. I don't know really what to expect, though. I don't know. It's who has the least amount of jet lag, I guess. I do expect high scoring games, though. I really do.
Yeah, look, I don't know if we can necessarily get mad at Major League Baseball starting the season 10 days early and playing in Japan when the NFL, the greedy pigs that they are, play a first week game now in Brazil. Now we're going to have a game in Australia in 2026. Like, that could ruin a team's season. The Rams are going to be playing in Australia. You know how long of a flight that is? I mean, give them a double bye week after that so they can recover. So I don't think we can get mad. I know Sean I think he was all huffy and puffy about it last week because he thinks okay, sure, I don't mind playing in Japan. Stop having the Dodgers play in Japan because look at the team they've assembled now. They've got Shohei Ohtani. They got Yoshi Yamamoto. They got Roki Sasaki. You're basically giving the Dodgers a professional pipeline to continue to build their team here, a team that has spent billions of dollars. They're going to set records in terms of their salary cap and their payroll this year. And we're basically just filter feeding more Japanese superstars to this team. So I can understand the anger behind that. But, again, you want to build the brand. Go ahead.
It's not like the Dodgers have the only Japanese players in baseball, though. I mean, the Cubs landed Shota Imanaga last year. He was a lot better than what Yamamoto was last season. And then they also got Seiya Suzuki, who is one of the better hitters in baseball right now as a designated hitter. I want a full investigation, though, into the Japanese voting for the Gold Gloves, because there's no way this man won 3 Gold Gloves in Japan. He can't not read a fly ball to save his life. But as far as hitting, though, he's one of the better hitters at DH in the National League. So, I disagree. I liked his take about them playing in Japan. I just disagreed with the fact that the Dodgers are able to get all of the Japanese players, because it's not true.
Yeah, and the Red Sox have gotten Daisuke Matsuzaka years ago, and now they've got Masataka Yoshida. But I mean, still, it does feel like the Dodgers are the team that benefits most. Speaking of which, they've got a historic win total, 103.5 or 104.5 wins, depending on where you're looking. I mean, that is unbelievable. Like you said, some people are calling this Dodgers team the greatest opening day lineup of all time. I mean, again, World Series or bust, obviously, this year, coming off a World Series championship. But you put on our rundown, how many World Series do the Dodgers have to win in the next 5 years for all of their money spent to be not seen as a failure? If they won last year, if they only win one in the next 5 years, I mean, it's baseball. How can if they win another one in the next 5 seasons, to me, that's enough. I don't think they need to win more than one. They definitely would need to win another one, though, in the next 5 years. Brandon, what do you think?
Yeah, look, for me, if for the money you're spending $1 billion on your payroll right now, I think you have to win all of them, right? Because to me, if you're going to spend this money and you're going to get all of because you're going to spend all this money, like all the monopoly that they are creating with players. And I don't get me wrong, I'm not one of those Dodgers are ruining baseball guys, because I don't believe that. I wish more owners would start doing what the Dodgers are doing, but I just feel like if you're going to build this team, the greatest team ever assembled, like from what I'm hearing in a lot of circles, is that you're going to have to win all of them for it to not be a disappointment. I think to me personally, I'm putting some juice on the Padres to win this division, because I do think that the Dodgers have a depth problem. I don't think that they have created a lot of depth. They've got a great starting 9. They've got a great front 5 in their starting rotation, but they don't have depth behind that. And they are a Mookie Betts injury or a Shohei Ohtani injury away from going, uh-oh. And so for me, I'm going to put a little bit of juice on the Padres to win the division. But yeah, I would say if they don't win all of them, it's kind of a disappointment.
That's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous take. They have to win 5 straight World Series on top of the one they won last year. Come on. They're plus 300, by the way, on BetMGM to win the World Series this year. The Atlanta Braves are the next closest team. They have more than double the odds. And for opening day, by the way, Dodgers minus 185 on the money line here on BetMGM. They are right around plus money, though, on the run line. So if you think that they come out firing, win that game by 2, there you go. If you want to back the Dodgers on opening day, Tuesday morning, so less than 48 hours from now, 6 a.m. Eastern, opening day for baseball, Dodgers and Cubbies. Let's quickly pivot here back to football, because we did hit some NFL free agency earlier. I told you my I guess again, hot take. I know our guy Dan Turner, who does a great job for us here on the BetMGM network, thinks that it wasn't necessarily a hot take. I think it's a take. It's something that I think is going to come true. I'm going to be betting it. So that I think, but my strongest take is that I think Justin Fields leads the Jets to the playoffs, snaps that 14-year drought for the Jets, and I think that they make it to the playoffs. I think Justin Fields has the same kind of arc that Sam Darnold had last year. But we've got a week in the books of free agency, just an incredible flurry of moves. And I think the biggest one most recently is now we got to take a look at the NFC West here, because Cooper Kupp signs a 3-year deal with the Seahawks. Was that yesterday or Friday? And that is just a couple of days after they sign Sam Darnold. So now this is a new look Seahawks offense. Mike McDonald, the head coach, and remember last week our guy Shawnee is saying he's going to take the under on the Seahawks win total. He doesn't care what it is. He thinks they're going to be terrible. And now just a couple of days later, let's take a look at this revamped Seahawks offense here. Sam Darnold under center. I mean, well, no matter how you feel about Sam Darnold, I think we can say probably a wash with Geno Smith, right? I don't think you're really gaining or losing much with those guys. Geno had his big rejuvenation season in 2022. Darnold had it last year. Even if you think Darnold is more of the quarterback that you saw on the left, well, I guess if you think Sam Darnold is going to play all of next season like he did those last 2 games, then I guess you could make an argument that the Seahawks are going to be terrible. But let's say he's somewhere in the middle of the MVP candidate that he was for 14 games, and then the guy that just forgot how to play football for the last 2 games, right? Sam Darnold under center. Probably you're not really gaining or losing anything from Geno Smith. If you disagree, that's fine. You can hit me up on Twitter at PatBoyle44. You can let me know. But I don't think the Seahawks necessarily got better or worse at quarterback. Jackson Smith-Njigba is now their number 1 receiver, right? They traded away DK Metcalf to the Steelers. They add Cooper Kupp. They also signed Marquez Valdes-Scantling in free agency as well. That's a move that kind of flew under the radar. 1-year deal worth up to $5.5 million. Let's not forget how great of a season MVS was having with New Orleans in the middle of that year. Once Chris Olave went down, once they had some injuries, Marquez Valdes-Scantling stepped up, and he had a 3-game stretch where he had 4 touchdowns and over 250 yards. So, he's going to be the number 3 receiver. He's going to play in the slot. He's going to be that zone beater. But those 3 guys with Sam Darnold under center, let's not forget Kenny Walker and Zach Charbonnet running the football. Noah Fant, kind of a mid-tight end. And then an offensive line that they're trying to improve. I want to see them do more in the draft, but a young defense with a solid secondary, Reek Woolen and Devin Witherspoon, 2 lockdown guys. Don't forget they got, the vet Julian Love, and I like Kobe Bryant at shortstop. No, not that Kobe Bryant, the other Kobe Bryant. I think this is a Seahawks team that really could surprise a lot of people. I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs. I'm not saying that they're going to be, knocking out the 49ers for the NFC West. I do think San Francisco bounces back and is more so the 49ers team from 2 years ago than last year. I don't know, maybe their championship window might have closed slightly, but I still think that team is loaded, and I think injuries just ruined their year last year. I think the Niners win the NFC West, but I could see the Seahawks coming in second. I'm not necessarily ready to think, Matthew Stafford's back, like the Rams are going to be great. No, there's a reason that those contract discussions basically kind of played out in public with the Rams. And yes, Cooper Kupp, not the receiver he was a couple of years ago when he won the Triple Crown. Puka Nacua at this point is better than him, but they do lose Cooper Kupp. And it's a Rams team that had a very shaky offensive line last year with a lot of injuries. I think the Seahawks are going to surprise a lot of people this year. I would love to see when the schedule comes out and we get that win total. I'm going to be going over on the Seattle Seahawks. We'll come back, final hour, another round of hot takes, hot cakes, GTFO, oh yeah, and our best bets. It's Selection Sunday. No place to rather be. Sunday's bets. I'm Pat Boyle here on the BetMGM Network.
Bet smarter, win bigger. This is Sunday's Bets with Sean Marash and Pat Boyle on the BetMGM Network.
Joe O and Sammy P.
When I stop talking, that's when you jump in usually.
He said, ring that bell! He said, ring that bell!
Then it's You Better You Bet, hosted by Nick Costos and Femi Abebefe.
Great teams and great players get a whistle. It's happened forever. It will continue to happen.
Capped off every night with the electric Brad Evans and Ryan Horvat on BetMGM tonight.
Oh, that's a sexy phrase.
Quote Dr. Dre, creep with me and walk with me on this one.
Welcome to a new era of Wagertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Please gamble responsibly. Get ready to experience the ultimate fusion of wagering and entertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Kicking off your morning with the Daily Tip with Michael Jenkins and Chelsea Messenger.
Over.
It's a very simple way to look at it. It's the best way to look at it.
Followed by the newly branded Bet Sweats with Joe O and Sammy P.
When I stop talking, that's when you jump in usually.
He said, ring that bell! He said, ring that bell!
Then it's You Better You Bet, hosted by Nick Costos and Femi Abebefe.
Great teams and great players get a whistle. It's happened forever. It will continue to happen.
Capped off every night with the electric Brad Evans and Ryan Horvat on BetMGM tonight.
Oh, that's a sexy phrase.
Quote Dr. Dre, creep with me and walk with me on this one.
Welcome to a new era of Wagertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Please gamble responsibly. Get ready to experience the ultimate fusion of wagering and entertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Kicking off your morning with the Daily Tip with Michael Jenkins and Chelsea Messenger.
Over.
It's a very simple way to look at it. It's the best way to look at it.
Followed by the newly branded Bet Sweats with Joe O and Sammy P.
When I stop talking, that's when you jump in usually.
He said, ring that bell! He said, ring that bell!
Then it's You Better You Bet, hosted by Nick Costos and Femi Abebefe.
Great teams and great players get a whistle. It's happened forever. It will continue to happen.
Capped off every night with the electric Brad Evans and Ryan Horvat on BetMGM tonight.
Oh, that's a sexy phrase.
Quote Dr. Dre, creep with me and walk with me on this one.
Welcome to a new era of Wagertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Please gamble responsibly. Get ready to experience the ultimate fusion of wagering and entertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Kicking off your morning with the Daily Tip with Michael Jenkins and Chelsea Messenger.
Over.
It's a very simple way to look at it. It's the best way to look at it.
Followed by the newly branded Bet Sweats with Joe O and Sammy P.
When I stop talking, that's when you jump in usually.
He said, ring that bell! He said, ring that bell!
Then it's You Better You Bet, hosted by Nick Costos and Femi Abebefe.
Great teams and great players get a whistle. It's happened forever. It will continue to happen.
Capped off every night with the electric Brad Evans and Ryan Horvat on BetMGM tonight.
Oh, that's a sexy phrase.
Quote Dr. Dre, creep with me and walk with me on this one.
Welcome to a new era of Wagertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Please gamble responsibly. Get ready to experience the ultimate fusion of wagering and entertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Kicking off your morning with the Daily Tip with Michael Jenkins and Chelsea Messenger.
Over.
It's a very simple way to look at it. It's the best way to look at it.
Followed by the newly branded Bet Sweats with Joe O and Sammy P.
When I stop talking, that's when you jump in usually.
He said, ring that bell! He said, ring that bell!
Then it's You Better You Bet, hosted by Nick Costos and Femi Abebefe.
Great teams and great players get a whistle. It's happened forever. It will continue to happen.
Capped off every night with the electric Brad Evans and Ryan Horvat on BetMGM tonight.
Oh, that's a sexy phrase.
Quote Dr. Dre, creep with me and walk with me on this one.
Welcome to a new era of Wagertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Please gamble responsibly. Get ready to experience the ultimate fusion of wagering and entertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Kicking off your morning with the Daily Tip with Michael Jenkins and Chelsea Messenger.
Over.
It's a very simple way to look at it. It's the best way to look at it.
Followed by the newly branded Bet Sweats with Joe O and Sammy P.
When I stop talking, that's when you jump in usually.
He said, ring that bell! He said, ring that bell!
Then it's You Better You Bet, hosted by Nick Costos and Femi Abebefe.
Great teams and great players get a whistle. It's happened forever. It will continue to happen.
Capped off every night with the electric Brad Evans and Ryan Horvat on BetMGM tonight.
Oh, that's a sexy phrase.
Quote Dr. Dre, creep with me and walk with me on this one.
Welcome to a new era of Wagertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Please gamble responsibly. Get ready to experience the ultimate fusion of wagering and entertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Kicking off your morning with the Daily Tip with Michael Jenkins and Chelsea Messenger.
Over.
It's a very simple way to look at it. It's the best way to look at it.
Followed by the newly branded Bet Sweats with Joe O and Sammy P.
When I stop talking, that's when you jump in usually.
He said, ring that bell! He said, ring that bell! Then it's You Better You Bet, hosted by Nick Costos and Femi Abebefe.
Great teams and great players get a whistle. It's happened